Discover the amazing secrets of how Native Americans thrived in winter camps without fireplaces. The journal lay hidden within the dusty corners of the Cedar Falls University Library, its leather cover cracked with age, whispering secrets of survival. Sarah Mitchell's fingers trembled as she opened it, revealing meticulous notes and illustrations that detailed how Native American tribes weathered brutal winters without the comfort of modern heating. The knowledge felt electric, yet hammered against the walls of her seclusion an invisible cocoon spun from disbelief and academic dismissal. At 32, Sarah often found herself sidelined in a male-dominated world. The frosty air of Cedar Falls matched the chill she felt in faculty meetings when ideas floated away like her breath on the winter wind. Her colleagues, influential and dismissive, marked her insights as irrelevant, locking her into a cycle of self-doubt. Every scoff rang in her ears, a symphony of skepticism feeding her insecurities. The weight of student loans pressed into her consciousness day and night. Desperation edged into her thoughts. Her passion for anthropology had become a double-edged sword, leaving her feeling both inspired and invisible. As she immersed herself in the journal, her grandmother's stories echoed within her, tales of resilience that danced on her tongue but trembled with uncertainty in her heart. Those narratives ignited a fire she thought had long been extinguished. She wasn't just pursuing knowledge, she was reclaiming a legacy. Yet with ambition surged a swell of fear. Would sharing her discoveries do justice to those who weathered unimaginable hardship? Was she ready to put herself under the academic spotlight, knowing the hostility she faced? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The day of her presentation approached like a storm on the horizon. As Sarah stood before her peers, anxiety gripped her insides. The conference room buzzed with murmurs as she opened her mouth, armed with groundbreaking insights. The room shifted, tension draped heavily, the air thickening like snow hanging low on the trees. Her mentor's skeptical gaze shot arrows of derision, and the world fell into a deafening quiet. This doesn't relate to current issues, Sarah. You're losing touch, he insinuated, his voice a booming echo. In that moment, her heart raced, muscles tensed. Could she reveal these sacred insights to a community that might exploit them? A river of doubt flooded her mind. The societal pressures intertwined with her responsibility to the past felt like chains around her ankles, dragging her deeper into turmoil. Should she sacrifice authenticity for acceptance? Her revelations hung suspended in the air as she faced her mentor, anguish clawing at her chest. You don't understand my drive, she shot back, her voice shaking, a fierce determination rising even as uncertainty gnawed at her. The conflicting emotions twisted tighter, her identity as a scholar and a descendant of ancient peoples colliding violently within her. The room's tension cracked like lightning. Sarah's mind spiraled, seeing no easy exit. Would any recognition quell her desire for acknowledgement? The storm within raged on, leaving her in a precarious place at the precipice of something monumental, where the fight for respect suddenly felt insurmountable amidst the growing weight of her unresolved questions. Sarah stood there, the weight of her mentor's words pressing against her chest like a physical force. The silence in the room felt both suffocating and liberating. It was a moment suspended in time, where she stood at the crossroads of fear and resolve. But the flow of history surged within her bones, a tide of ancestors whispering encouragement to push through the reluctance and defend her work. As she shifted her gaze, taking in the faces of her peers, something shifted within her. What if, she thought, this moment isn't just about them? What if this is about honoring the voices of those who came before me? The journal's ancient wisdom, painstakingly documented over generations, felt like a lifeline she couldn't afford to sever. She could feel the hot blood pulsing in her veins, urging her to harness every ounce of fury, passion, and grit. History isn't merely a collection of events, it's a reservoir of survival, she began, her voice finding strength it hadn't possessed before. Each word felt like an arrow aimed directly at the heart of traditional academia's disdain. She spoke of the ingenious adaptations of Native Americans during winter, their innovative strategies that outsmarted the harshest of climates without compromising their spirit. This research was not only relevant, it was a call to resilience in the face of modern disinterest. As she spoke, the audience shifted. The initial skepticism softened into intrigue, perhaps confusion, and a lingering curiosity. Sarah noticed her mentor's grip on the desk loosen, an imperceptible nod creeping onto his face as if he were reluctantly acknowledging something he had initially dismissed. The adrenaline coursed through her, spurring her on. And while we sit here, debating the significance of traditions, we forget that these practices are not relics of the past, they are frameworks for sustainable living, she stated, her voice echoing off the cold white walls. The fervor of her presentation began to resonate, not just academically, but personally. She could feel herself emerging no longer a product of their doubt, but a champion of untold histories. The tension ebbed as she leaned into the core of her research, illustrating connections to contemporary societal issues. We cannot ignore the wisdom embedded within these cultures, especially in an era where climate change threatens our very existence. We are at a precipice, and understanding how these communities thrived can impart vital lessons for us all. With every sentence, she peeled away layers of doubt that had encased her for years. In this charged space, she was no longer just Sarah, the overlooked academic, she was Sarah, the bridge between past and present. The realization was as liberating as it was terrifying. As she concluded, catching glimpses of some wide-eyed reflections in the room, a wave of euphoria washed over her, but so did an unsettling suspicion. Would her newly claimed strength endure once the applause faded? Could she maintain this voice against the still looming challenges ahead? The conference ended, but Sarah felt the unknown pull her forward, an internal beckoning to confront the deeper issues of acceptance and validation. Could she engage with her colleagues while steadfastly preserving the integrity of her work? Or would the familiar voices of dismissal creep back? The answer lay tantalizingly close, just beyond the next challenge waiting in the wings. The moment was ripe for evolution, but the looming question hung heavy. How far would she need to go to prove herself and bring forth the legacy of those who had thrived against all odds? It was time to confront the very forces that had threatened to drown her passion. The next morning dawned with a sense of urgency that matched the turmoil spinning inside Sarah's mind. As she brewed her coffee, her hands trembled slightly, not from exhaustion but from the adrenaline still pulsing through her veins. Each sip grounded her, reminding her of what lay ahead, the battle for acceptance, the pursuit of respect within the academia that had so often dismissed her work. She opened her laptop, the screen illuminating her resolve. Today wouldn't just be another day of research. It was a day she needed to turn newfound zeal into productive action. With her heart racing, she began to methodically outline her next steps. She had a presentation to prepare for an upcoming seminar, and the skepticism she had witnessed yesterday only fueled her determination to craft a narrative that couldn't be ignored. The contents of the ancient journal swirled in her heart like a living tapestry, wisdoms waiting to be unfurled. As she assembled her notes, the words flowed like water. She would not only present history, she would weave cultural insights that resonated with the today. Sarah envisioned addressing the very biases that had previously crept into conversations during meetings. Each point was designed to dismantle preconceived notions. Analysis without acknowledgement of resilience is a disservice. She iterated repeatedly to herself, each repetition fortifying her belief. But there was another layer of challenge looming, swirling beneath her excitement, the prospect of critical feedback from her peers. Doubt began to flicker in the corners of her mind, whispering questions about expertise and perceived authority. The familiarity of past criticisms felt all too close, threatening to encroach on her newfound confidence. Determining to confront this inner battle, Sarah opened her door and stepped out for a walk beneath the sprawling oak trees that lined her neighborhood. The crisp air brushed against her skin, offering clarity. Nature had taught endurance and innovation long before academia had even considered its implications for modern life. As she walked, she pictured the thriving ecosystems, learning from them how to adapt and flourish despite adversity. With each step, she consciously focused on what she wanted to achieve, not just to please her peers, but to demand their attention, to captivate them with a reality they seldom chose to acknowledge. This wasn't for them. This was about honoring the cultures that had inspired her. Returning home, the fire within her invigorated her. The content of her presentation began to take shape in her mind. She would incorporate statistical data along with profound stories of survival. There would be no separation of quantitative and qualitative analyses, each would enhance the other. This synthesis became a revelation, sparking the thought that perhaps she had only scratched the surface of what her work could convey. As night fell, the monitor glowed softly in her dimly lit room. She believed she now had something her colleagues couldn't ignore, a framework for not just presenting history, but for inspiring action. Would they engage beyond their skepticism? In the back of her mind, the nagging voice returned, taunting her with memories of encounters where she felt belittled. Would she find the courage to face them? A second test of her resolve? Just as Sarah was about to save her document, a notification dinged. It was an email from her mentor, and as she opened it, her heart skipped a beat. The subject read, "Revisiting yesterday's implications." Would he support her efforts or question her validity again? The horizon before her was shrouded in darkness, but she steeled herself for whatever revelation lay within the message, knowing that the answers she sought were certainly not free of cost. How far was she prepared to go to stake her claim in this world? The soft glow of her laptop screen paled against the growing uncertainty that filled Sarah's mind as she read her mentor's email. His words were measured but fair, challenging her to refine her arguments while affirming the significance of her findings. "Your insights are valid, but you must anticipate resistance. Strengthen your position," he had urged, and with that, the gauntlet was thrown. What if he was right? What if, despite her preparations, she faced hostility? Sarah's palms grew clammy, but the embarrassment tucked away beneath her determination stirred something deeper in her. Unable to dismiss her mentor's advice, she resolved to use it as fuel rather than as an obstacle. The next morning, she woke to soft rays filtering through the blinds, time slipping away like sand against the tides. Sarah set to work, refining her presentation. This time, every statistic gained weight as she needed to project herself not just as a researcher but as a conduit of a narrative rich with resilience and wisdom. With each slide, she delved into the heart of her studies. The stories she told, tales of vibrant cultures thriving despite challenges, seemed to come alive in her mind. She visualized how this presentation could resonate. The concept of thriving without conventional means was no longer merely academic. It was a lifeline, a testament to adaptability. She included testimonials from oral histories, ensuring that the human experience was not overshadowed by numbers or charts. As her project came together, she noticed her apprehensions slowly transforming into empowered focus. The fear of dismissal, which had clouded her initial views, evolved into a potent catalyst. She could not shy away from confrontation anymore. She would challenge her peers' skepticism head-on. Sarah recalled the ecosystem she had admired, where every organism had its role, every voice mattered. Could she embody that same tenacity in her arena? The seminar loomed just days away when a surprise email popped up in her inbox. It was from a colleague notorious for his sharp critique, a man infamous for belittling innovative ideas. The subject line read, "Let's collaborate on your upcoming presentation." The irony was palpable. He had rarely engaged in discussions around her previous work. Feeling the rush of adrenaline, she took a moment to breathe deeply. This interaction could either be an ambush or a legitimate endeavor. Perhaps he, too, recognized the shifting tides. A collaboration could amplify her voice, but how could she be sure he wouldn't try to assert dominance over her findings afterward? She replied cautiously, "I'd be open to discussing relevant points, but I want to ensure my narrative remains intact." This was a pivotal moment. Allowing herself to collaborate felt simultaneously liberating and risky. She knew she needed the connection yet wrestled with the fear of being overshadowed. Sarah spent the rest of that day weighing the strength of her content against the potential upheaval of involving him. Late into the evening, doubts crept back in, shadowing her confidence like a dark cloud. Was she too eager to gain acceptance, or could this involvement lead to a closer examination of her ideas? Finally, she made a decision that sent a jolt through her. She would not allow fear to dictate how she navigated this opportunity. She would embrace the risk and frame her narrative powerfully enough to withstand any critiques or challenges. It was time to test her will, and she felt a wave of determination wash over her. The next morning struck with a sense of foreboding excitement. As she prepared to meet with her colleague, a single thought echoed repeatedly in her mind. The time had come to face not just the critics, but to confront the fear of her own limitations. Little did she know, the true challenge awaited just beyond the threshold of the seminar hall, where the first question posed might shake her resolve to its core. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the shadows of her past triumph once more? As Sarah approached the seminar hall, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat filled the silence around her. The excitement of potential mingled with anxiety, creating a cocktail of emotions that threatened to spill over. She had practiced her presentation until each word felt like a pulse in her veins, and yet standing there, facing the hall brimming with colleagues, the gravity of the moment settled heavily on her shoulders. With a deep breath, she entered, her strides purposeful, glancing at familiar faces, some of whom had been staunch critics of her earlier research. As she set up her laptop, she felt the weight of their unyielding gazes. The room buzzed with conversations, yet after what seemed an eternity, the murmurs dimmed as Sarah was called to the forefront. Adjusting the microphone, she summoned every ounce of her determination. She began, sharing the stories of Native Americans who had thrived in winter camps without reliance on conventional methods like fireplaces. With each word, she painted vivid images of resilience, creativity, and the importance of community adaptation. She highlighted their unique methods for warmth, nutrition, and psychological well-being during harsh winters, each point underlined with data and personal anecdotes from oral histories. As she navigated through her slides, a sense of empowerment washed over her. This was her narrative, meticulously crafted from her insights and research, woven together by threads of humanity. She was no longer the hesitant researcher seeking validation. She was a storyteller, bridging gaps between the past and present, hard evidence and rich tradition. Yet, the spotlight carried with it the fierce scrutiny of her colleague, the critic whose email had ignited her anxiety. As she concluded her presentation, she spotted him with his trademark frown, fingers steepled in contemplation. The moment of truth came when he stood up, creating a palpable spike in tension. "Interesting presentation, Sarah," he began, his voice smooth but laced with skepticism. "However, how do you reconcile these practices with the fact that many adopt more modern methods? Is it not a disservice to present these as viable alternatives in today's world?" Her stomach dropped momentarily, yet she embraced the challenge. "It's not about dismissing modernity," she countered, her voice steadier than she felt. "It's about recognizing the adaptability embedded within these cultures. They didn't merely survive, they thrived against the odds. In an age of crisis, such insights are invaluable, urging us to rethink our own approaches." She could see knowledge flashing in the eyes of her peers, some nodding appreciatively. The room was engaged, the energy shifting toward her favor. Yet, the critic was not done. But isn't that also romanticizing their experience? Many would argue that these practices are outdated. A ripple of discomfort coursed through her. Was he right? Had she inadvertently sought to elevate the past over contemporary realities? The question lingered. The glimmer of doubt flickered within her. "I wouldn't characterize it as romanticizing," she replied, her voice now tinged with a deeper confidence, yet still hesitating slightly. "Instead, my aim is to illustrate resilience in the face of adversity, a quality that transcends time." As she spoke, she seized upon her hidden capability to weave narratives from complex truths, revitalizing her own understanding of the project. The dialogue morphed into a constructive exchange, invigorating her argument with newfound depth and precision. Sarah found herself not only defending her ideas but expanding them mid-conversation. By the end, she could feel the initial resistance melting away, replaced by curiosity and respect. People approached her with thoughtful questions, discussions erupted. It was no longer a mere presentation, it morphed into a dialogue reflecting Sarah's growth as a researcher, a communicator, and a leader in her field. Exiting the hall, exhilaration coursed through her. She had navigated the uncertainties and emerged not just intact but stronger. Yet as she walked away, another thought crept in. Would this newfound confidence withstand the weight of yet another critique? Particularly from her mentor, who was known for being relentless in his assessments. Sarah paused, pondering what other challenges lay ahead as she steeled herself for the next confrontation. There was still much to learn and even more to prove. A weight settled in her chest, not of fear, but of anticipation. What revelations would the next challenge unveil? What boundaries could she push if she continued to embrace the unknown? The path ahead was unclear, yet it beckoned with the promise of transformation. The evening after the seminar, Sarah sat on her couch, still buzzing from her moment in the spotlight. The critiques lingered, but the exchange invigorated her. As she absorbed the feedback from her colleagues, she realized something vital: the power of conversation lay in its ability to shift perspectives. It was a light bulb moment, rekindling her passion for her research. In the days following, Sarah crafted a plan. Rather than shying away from her mentor's looming critique, she would approach him with the same vigor she had displayed during her presentation. She sat down, pen in hand, and began analyzing the feedback, balancing traditional methods with modern realities. Her mentor's opinions had always been sharp, often cutting deep. But this time she saw them as a pathway rather than a blockade. With each point she penned in her notebook, her confidence swelled. She sought evidence to fill the gaps in her argument, creating a comprehensive counter to their criticisms. The idea formed elegantly in her mind: she would transform her project into a fluid, living research paper, one that would not only state facts but also weave narratives that compelled readers to consider the implications of indigenous knowledge. The next day, Sarah approached her mentor's office, each step resonating with a newfound purpose. She knocked gently, and at the call to enter, she pushed the door open. The dim light of the office felt like a spotlight as she squared her shoulders. "Sarah," he greeted, looking up from a pile of papers. His expression was unreadable, blending curiosity with caution. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "I've reflected on our discussions and the feedback from my presentation. I want to expand my argument. I believe I can address the concerns raised, particularly regarding modern relevance and romanticization." For a brief moment he studied her, the silence stretching. "Go on," he finally said, leaning forward slightly. Encouraged, she launched into her revised approach. "This isn't just a defense of traditional practices. It's about illustrating how these cultures may hold keys to resilience that apply universally. During crises, communities find ways to adapt. My goal is to ground my study in contemporary applications, fully integrating these insights into our modern dialogues." His brow furrowed as he listened, and Sarah felt a mix of apprehension and thrill at the way her ideas unfolded. "You're developing," he remarked slowly, folding his fingers together. "But tell me, how do you intend to present this while avoiding the trap of cultural appropriation?" Her heart raced. It was precisely the kind of question she had anticipated but didn't fully know how to answer. "I want to partner with cultural experts, ensure that I represent their voices accurately, and frame this research as an ongoing dialogue rather than a final opinion. I'll incorporate more oral histories and primary sources, allowing those whose practices I study to speak for themselves. Their lived experience is invaluable." He looked at her with newfound interest. "And what if they disagree with your interpretation?" "Then I will adapt. The research must be accountable to those represented. It's their story, and I will earn that trust." The certainty in her voice surprised even her. "Interesting approach, but challenging. You would need conviction, resilience, and a willingness to pivot." A smile crept onto Sarah's face. "I thrive on challenges. I want to allow their experiences to shape this project, instigating an interactive exchange that enhances understanding rather than imposing shouldered knowledge." With that, he leaned back, engaging in contemplation. "This is a tall order, Sarah, but it seems you're ready to redefine the narrative you want to share." As they continued to discuss her next steps, Sarah felt a shift within herself. The anxiety she often associated with critiques transformed into determination. She was crafting a path not just to defend her work but to expand her understanding of it. In collaboration with others. After their meeting, she stepped back into the corridor, gripping her notebook tightly. Each step tinged with triumph, the uncertainty of her previous doubts faded. She had ignited a spark within her that led to endless possibilities, and it lit her path toward a greater understanding of herself and her work. Yet, amidst that triumph, a nagging thought persisted: how would she source these perspectives? Who would guide her through this process? The challenge loomed ahead as she reached for her phone, preparing to seek out potential collaborators, unaware of the transformative journey that awaited her. Would she be able to champion these voices authentically, or would the burden of expectations weigh her down? The following weeks unfolded with a rhythm that felt both familiar and foreign to Sarah. As she delved deeper into her project, her days were marked by a blend of exhilaration and trepidation. She immersed herself in reading, researching the diverse narratives and adaptations of indigenous cultures to modern challenges. However, with each discovery, the pressing question remained: who would contribute their voice to her work? In a surge of determination, Sarah began reaching out to potential collaborators. She drafted emails, carefully crafting her invitations to research partners and cultural experts. They were heartfelt, embodying her desire to learn rather than dictate. Each response drew her deeper into the tapestry of narratives she sought to weave, yet their anticipated encounters also instilled uncertainty. Later, the day arrived when she was to meet a representative from the local Native American community, a respected elder named Lila. The session was set in a modest community center, the walls adorned with art that spoke 100 words, each piece a testament to the resilience encapsulated in their history. As she entered, the air hummed with stories waiting to be shared. Lila greeted her with a warm smile, her presence radiating wisdom. After the introduction, Sarah hesitated, her throat tightening. What if her intentions were perceived as superficial? She had prepared questions but realized that this meeting was less an interview and more a conversation. So she asked, "What does resilience mean in your community?" Lila's eyes lit up as she responded, weaving a narrative filled with parallels of hardship and adaptation. An engaging exchange unfolded, with Lila recounting the harsh winters spent in ancestral homes that, despite lacking modern comforts, fostered warmth through community bonds. Sarah listened intently, jotting down ideas and insights, capturing the essence of lived experience rather than merely facts. As the meeting progressed, however, doubts crept into Sarah's mind. She sensed an unspoken question lurking beneath the surface. Was she truly prepared to navigate the complexities of interweaving her academic aspirations with the authenticity required of their stories? It dawned on her that the responsibilities of representation were weighty. Potential pitfalls of misinterpretation loomed like shadows as she sought clarity. Halfway through their discussion, Lila leaned closer. "Your passion is evident, Sarah. But I sense your fear of misrepresenting what you find. This isn't just about gathering stories. It's about understanding the roots of suffering and survival." A wave of vulnerability washed over Sarah. "I want to elevate these stories, not exploit them. And I worry, how can I avoid cultural missteps?" In that moment, Lila's expression softened, and she shared an important truth. By listening deeply and acknowledging that these stories are not yours to own, but to honor. Let your research foster dialogue, not dominance. As the conversation shifted, Sarah started feeling something shift within her. She recognized the entanglement of relationships, trust, and understanding. The project was no longer an isolated academic endeavor, but a complex tapestry woven with hands beyond her own. After their meeting ended, Sarah stepped outside into the crisp air. Her initial excitement shifted toward a resolve she hadn't anticipated. This engagement was not just about gathering data. It was about cultivating a shared journey, demanding respect and humility. Could she anchor her work in this shared ethos? With renewed clarity, she knew she would need to return to the texts, but now with the weight of their stories guiding her pen. Each narrative would help her write dynamically, illuminating their experiences without overshadowing their essence. As she returned to her office, an unexpected message chimed on her phone. It was an email from a prominent academic in her field, responding to her inquiry about potential partnerships. The subject was collaboration on indigenous studies, but the content hinted at something more ominous. Let us discuss boundaries and expectations. A chill gripped her. Would this scholar support her efforts, or inadvertently steer her project into troubling waters? The uncertainty that followed reminded her of the delicate balance she needed to achieve the challenge of being both an ally and investigator. Suddenly, she felt the weight of her endeavors intensify, raising a new question. Was she ready to face the implications of her choices in the academic world she was stepping into? As Sarah sat at her desk, the glow of her computer screen illuminated her furrowed brow. The email lay open in front of her, words swirling in a cloud of anxiety. This renowned scholar had the power to shape her project's trajectory, a mentor she had long admired. Yet the prospect of collaboration sent a ripple of apprehension through her. She had envisioned this partnership as a means to fortify her understanding, yet now it felt like a potential snare, one that could compromise the very authenticity she sought to preserve. What boundaries were to be discussed? Could this scholar truly grasp the nuance required when handling such delicate narratives? Reeling from the uncertainty, she reached for her notebook, a habit that had become her lifeline. Flipping through the pages, her thoughts shifted to Lila's voice, resonating with wisdom. Each word echoed the importance of integrity and representation. Sarah scribbled down her feelings. Foundation of trust is key. Must honor, not own. In doing so, she contemplated what her next step should be. She decided to write back to the scholar, careful in her expression. She needed to assert her commitment to ethical research, to show that her intentions were rooted in respect. The words poured out as she detailed her desire to engage in a dialogue that would place community voices at the forefront, rather than allow her academia to dictate their stories. With a deep breath, she hit send, releasing a tension that had knotted her stomach. Days rolled by, and Sarah dove back into research, losing herself within academic journals and narratives. Yet despite the informative content, each article left her feeling more isolated in her mission. She struggled with the pressure to conform to conventional academic tones. Perhaps what she needed was inspiration outside of the library walls. With a flash of insight, the answer came: action. Sarah realized that to fully grasp the nuances of resilience in indigenous cultures, she needed more than just theoretical texts. She needed to immerse herself in experiences that reflected their history. Drawing from the insights gleaned from Lila, she resolved to seek out events or workshops that could connect her directly to individuals and stories that mattered. That afternoon, she scoured community boards for any opportunities, only to find one that stirred her excitement: a workshop on traditional winter camping techniques. It promised to be an experience led by members of the tribe who had thrived in their homeland long before industrial comforts. This was not merely research, it was a chance to learn through doing. She signed up immediately, a rush of thrill coursing through her. For the first time in weeks, she felt a glimmer of hope. Her project no longer felt like a solitary task but an evolving dialogue, not just an academic assignment, but a reciprocal journey of shared knowledge. As the event approached, Sarah prepared mentally, visualizing herself asking questions, absorbing insights, and most importantly, listening intently. She envisioned stories being shared around a small campfire, where knowledge transcended the barriers of written form and entered a realm of personal connection. However, even as excitement built, a nagging thought lingered in the back of her mind: how would she navigate a space filled with those she sought to understand on an intimate level? What if in this direct engagement she stumbled, misstepped, or made assumptions? The fear of misrepresentation threatened to eclipse her eagerness. Standing at the threshold of this new opportunity, Sarah found herself breathing deeply, wrestling with the duality of her emotions. She wondered if she was ready to leave the safety of her office, ready to confront the raw essence of the narratives she sought to explore. This workshop could become an awakening, or a challenge that laid bare her vulnerabilities. But just as she steeled herself for the workshop, another email notification interrupted her thoughts. The subject line read, "Let us clarify our collaboration." Sarah's heart raced. Was this a chance for clarity or a response laden with caution? The moment of truth had arrived, and Sarah knew she would have to face it head on. Would she embrace the words of wisdom and tread carefully, or would she allow the tides of academia to sweep her away from the mission she had begun to define? As Sarah read the new email, the words began to jump off the screen, each sentence drawing her deeper into a mix of curiosity and trepidation. "I appreciate your commitment to authentic engagement," it began, "but I'd like us to discuss how we can align our goals for this collaboration." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, mind racing as she processed the implications. The scholar's intent was clear. This wasn't merely a formality. It was a test, a chance to forge a partnership delicately balanced on the precipice of academic rigor and cultural respect. Sarah's anxiety transformed into a fiery determination. She knew she had to articulate her vision with clarity, establishing a tone that reflected both aspiration and caution. Before diving into her thoughts, she composed herself, drawing in a breath that felt essential. With every typed word, she painted her values into the fabric of their potential collaboration. She articulated the responsibility that came with telling someone else's story, emphasized consent, and underscored the significance of ethical dialogue. Yet, as she pressed send, a sinking feeling returned to her chest. What if she had misread the scholar's tone? What if her responses felt defensive rather than collaborative? The back and forth had begun to blur lines between her desire for authentic connection and the rigid protocols of academia. With a swift click away from the inbox, Sarah shifted her focus toward the upcoming workshop, acknowledging the duality of her situation. This was her real chance. Immersing herself in the workshop meant engaging with history as it lived and breathed, not just theorized. She began crafting a set of questions in her notebook, intentional prompts aimed not just to extract information, but to demonstrate her commitment to genuinely listening. In her mind, she replayed scenarios of the workshop, finding common ground, laughing over shared experiences, and absorbing intricate knowledge that couldn't be captured in academic jargon. Each idea sparked more excitement, yet that underlying fear simmered. How would she navigate the inevitable cultural chasms? What experiences could she share that would communicate her respect without sounding patronizing? The workshop day arrived, a cool morning that whispered of promise. Dressed in layers, Sarah felt the weight of her expectations alongside the thrill of uncertainty. As she approached the site, the sense of earth and pine invigorated her senses. She was drawn into a world that had thrived beyond the confines of indoor classrooms, where the essence of past and present met under the open sky. The group gathered around a fire pit, the purpose of which was initially lost on her but soon became evident. Storytelling was not just a means of sharing knowledge, it was the very fabric of their tradition. As ice was broken with laughter and anecdotes, Sarah felt something shift within her. With every exchange, she began shedding her apprehension, gradually beginning to see this not as an interview, but as a dialogue steeped in shared humanity. Yet, as she listened, a latent anxiety resurfaced. Would her presence disrupt the sanctity of their stories? Would her questions unveil ignorance, making her an unwitting antagonist in their history? The tension built within her, mirroring the igniting warmth of the flames around her. Sarah decided to confront her fears. Each time doubt crept into her mind, she revisited her commitment to honor rather than appropriate. This was her moment to not just witness, but to understand. She offered her own stories, sharing experiences that had shaped her worldview, becoming a participant instead of a distant observer. As the workshop faded into evening, a sense of arrival washed over her. The dialogue flowed naturally, bridging past with present. A new level of understanding began to emerge within interactions marked by trust, and Sarah sensed a fundamental transformation. She was no longer the outsider. Yet shadows of her earlier doubts still clung to the edges of her thoughts. What would happen when the conversation turned to her academic practices? Could she truly integrate this experience with the expectations of her scholar colleague? Just as she grappled with those impending complexities, a voice rang out from the group. "Let us talk about what it means to truly share our stories," one of the elders said, eyes sparkling with challenge. Caught off guard, Sarah felt the weight of the moment. The essence of her journey aimed at understanding was about to be tested anew. Would she rise to the occasion or falter under the pressure of expectation? As she stood among the gathered faces, Sarah felt a profound shift within her. The apprehension that had shadowed her since the seminar began to dissolve, replaced by a burgeoning sense of belonging. The elders spoke with warmth and conviction about the weight of sharing narratives, mindful of the delicate dance between representation and authenticity. It resonated within her, echoing Lila's wisdom, urging her to reflect deeply. "I want to honor your stories," Sarah said, her voice clear and confident, breaking through the ambient crackle of the fire. "But I also recognize the responsibility that comes with sharing them. How can I ensure my work reflects your truths and honors your journey?" The elder smiled, his expression a blend of appreciation and respect. "Understanding comes through listening and ongoing dialogue, Sarah. Use your dual lens, both academic and personal. Let the voices of your community guide your narrative." With each hour that passed, Sarah found herself absorbed in a web of shared histories and experiences that transcended anything she had ever encountered in the sterile confines of her university. This was real life, lived through generations, and she savored every moment, taking notes not just in her notebook but within her heart. The simplicity of the setting, sitting around a fire, lighting shadows into stories, allowed her to shed the weight of academic expectations she had carried for so long. During breaks, she discussed her research and findings, welcoming the elders' perspectives. They shared anecdotes of resilience during winter months and connected them to the world's urgent need to adapt to changing climates. She felt her narrative evolve beneath the bright stars, starting to take shape as a living entity rather than a static collection of data points. By the end of the workshop, Sarah's gratitude mingled with deep relief. The trepidation that initially held her captive had unfurled into a personal journey to weave these insights into her academic work. The voices of her collaborators had ignited a passion she now understood directly rooted in mutual respect and integrity, illuminating her purpose. Returning home that evening, Sarah snatched her laptop and opened her draft of the research paper. Her fingers raced across the keyboard, flowing with a newfound vigor. For the first time, she didn't just write about resilience, she shared it, interspersing narratives from the workshop alongside her academic analyses. She reflected on the transformative conversations had and the stories shared around the fire, each thread becoming an essential part of the whole tapestry she was now creating. Days turned into weeks, and as she received feedback from Lila and other collaborators, her confidence solidified. They praised her efforts to listen, engage, and accurately represent their truth, with Lila calling it a vital partnership that offered the community a voice in the academic sphere. Each accolade brushed away the cobwebs of self-doubt, revealing recognition she had longed for, casting a warm light on her path ahead. In the culmination of her project presentation, she stood again before her peers, but this time it was different. Every gaze she felt upon her brought familiar faces of understanding rather than skepticism. She shared a story, one filled with collective experience and timeless wisdom. "I stand here not solely as a researcher but as an advocate of resilience," she articulated, her heart surging with purpose. Each wintering tale shared, rooted in community tenacity, transcends mere survival. It beckons us to adapt and act in hard times, to recognize that wisdom beyond textbooks exists. This isn't just a historical narrative, it's a framework for our future. The applause that followed was no longer a mere echo, it resonated with a shared understanding. She felt acknowledged, respected, and empowered in a way that was worth every challenge crossed, every voice raised. In the aftermath, a sense of catharsis enveloped her. Sarah didn't just prove herself as an academic, she became a bridge, harmonizing the past and present, illuminating paths toward recognizing authentic voices. She achieved a pivotal understanding of the importance of collaboration, embodied the essence of resilience, and turned her journey into a testament of growth. Now, equipped with solid confidence and a robust network of collaborators, Sarah had not only reclaimed her place within academia but had woven together her legacy with those who had paved the way before her. She looked forward to what lay ahead, ready to embrace whatever challenges might come, reclaiming her position as a writer of stories worth telling. The triumph was sweet, but the call for vigilance remained. Each story was alive, and it was her responsibility to ensure that they would never fade away. Right now, you need to subscribe to this channel to not miss gripping emotional stories like Sarah's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and keep these narratives alive. Comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah's transformative journey, and share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this remarkable conclusion. Don't wait even one more second, show your support.